Hi everyone. So in this video we're going to be talking about the short movie that you watched called Battle of the Breaths. This movie was actually made by a former student of mine, and I like to mention that just because it seems like it's really difficult. Some of you might have been very confused by what you saw there, but realize it was another student, not too dissimilar from you. And so I think that we can go through and try and figure out how we can get some kind of meaning from this. And one of the reasons I want to do this is I like to begin with a movie, and we can talk about how to understand some meaning from the movie. And we're going to do the same thing then when we go to an actual poem. And I think it's sometimes easier for us to understand that from something visual and then figure out, oh, now we're going to do the same thing to something with words, right? But the same thing, some of the same ideas are going to apply. I'd say that this movie on some level is like a visual poem in a way. And so we want to think about how we can kind of decode some of this, try and figure out what it is that the filmmaker is ultimately trying to say here. So we've got this image. We start off with this image of uh, um, liquid here. If you look at that, you can see it's kind of like oil and water. In your discussion board about this, I'm going to ask you to talk about this oil and water. But if you look over here, my computer's dragging a bit. You can see it starts off with a picture of the Taj Mahal here, that's in India. And so we're thinking, okay, so we start off with the Taj Mahal in India. We have a child here that's going to be holding up so we can get to that. There it is. Oh, this woman with this kind of Indian clothing. I'm trying to get here to there. This child with an Indian flag here. And so we're thinking somehow about images of India, um, a series of those at the beginning. And if we start out with all of these images of India, we'll pull that away. There's something about all of these images that somehow relate to that. Then it's kind of interesting because we get to here. I can actually play some of this. We can get on, doesn't play too well. But we can see in this place, we're actually going to be on an airplane, right? Sorry. There, the image of there, we're going to be on an airplane. Well, we're going somewhere. Where is it that we might be going? In some going here. And then we've got this kind of twisty thing going on here. This road that twists, and kind of a theme of things that twist. And we start to think about maybe what some of those things represent to us, right? What any emotions that might come from something like this? How might you feel? Do you feel calmed by this? Probably not. Does it make you feel happy and secure? Probably not. But think about what these kind of spirals might potentially represent for us. And again, just kind of file those away as you're thinking about these other images. We've seen that we've moved from India. We've gotten on an airplane. And then look at that. We've got this rather interesting kind of representation of the American flag. So how does that potentially relate to what's been going on here, right? We're in India, we're on an airplane, now we've got an American flag here. And what is it that this person wants to be suggesting about that? And then if you look at this oil and water, it keeps coming back. It was at the beginning, it shows up again. And one of the rules is if something keeps showing up a number of times, it means something, right? There's something that we're trying to say here, right? If I tell you over and over again, please email me if you have any questions. It's because I think that's really important, right? Always email me if you have any questions. And so if I keep seeing this image here of this oil and water, I've seen it here in the middle here, I'm going to see it a couple more times going through, and then I'm saying, all right, there's something about this that somehow relates to everything else in the movie. And everything should relate in the movie, right? Because if it is a movie that's all one piece, this student put it together and said, all this stuff, I want to put all these images here together. There's some bigger idea that the student's trying to get across here. And so all those images should relate. So wait, we've got the oil and water, we're got all these images of India, we get on an airplane, we get on an airplane. Things seem rather confusing. We get to we have this United States flag here. We've got more oil and water. So again, how is it that we can start to tie some of these ideas together? What we seem to be suggesting here. And then we've got this image here of a young woman. And she is going to be, where are we going to get it? She's going to be making kind of a thing, right? Like keep a secret. Well, what's the secret that we might be keeping here? And we've got images of other young women dressing in a particular way, wearing high heels, right? Putting on lipstick, dressing like they're going out. And what do we think about these images here, right? How do they relate to some of the images we might have of women earlier in all these places where we were talking about India? What is it that we might want to say about the relationship between those? And why would somebody need to keep those things a secret? All interesting questions that we have here, right? We can see a scene here in this film that is going to be a picture of, that's New York City, Manhattan. And so we've had these pictures of India. We had an American, we got on an airplane, we have a flag, we have pictures of Manhattan, we have images of women dressing in ways that might seem traditionally Indian, and then we have images of women here who are going to be dressing in more modern American ways, right? And so what is it we're supposed to be thinking about those things, right? How are we supposed to feel about that? Here we've got an image of a skull. There's a lot of stuff going on in there, right? What does that represent? Does that tell us something about how somebody might be feeling? And there are a number of images like that, and we can think about what they tell us. We've got some other images of just the kinds of things that young women might be doing, at least what young women might be doing maybe before the virus pandemic. She's dancing on top of the roof of a car. Women who are going to be maybe at some kind of a show or a festival, out having fun. And so what is it we're supposed to think about these women? How do they differ from what we had at the beginning? And how are we supposed to be thinking about that? We've got images of fast food, right? Seems like a very American thing, fast food that we have here. So that kind of an image. But then we go back and we have this image that seems very Indian, and what is it that we're maybe saying about that, right? Why are we keep contrasting, going back and forth between these images of India, these images of the United States, right? These images that kind of show, brains exploding and things like that, and then this image that we keep getting of this oil and water. It keeps coming back to that. How are we supposed to be thinking about all of that? And so there's some images in here that also that are kind of seem downright dangerous potentially, that blood and all that. So how does that fit in with this? This movie is called Battle of the Breaths. What kind of battle is going on between going on here? Is it a battle between two different people? Or maybe it's a battle between inside of one person? What is it that's going to be happening there? And again, how does that oil and water seem to fit in? So what I want you to do is watch the film. You might need to, again, you may need to watch it a couple of times. And then I want you to think about what that oil and water is doing. And so for your discussion board response, I tell you to post saying, here's what I think the oil and water means in this film. I give an example of pirate ships and submarines. Obviously, this film is not about pirate ships and submarines. I just didn't want to give away any secrets here. I didn't want to tell you what I think is going on here. I want you to come to that on your own. So I want you to come on your own and say, look, what do you think this oil and water really represents here, given some of the other things that are going on in the film? And you'll post that. And once you post that, you'll be able to see what other students have posted, if they've posted anything yet. And then you'll come back and respond to what other students have said. You can say, oh, I never thought about it this way, or yeah, I think the same way that you do. So whatever it is you want to say about that. So again, you may need to watch the film a couple of times in order to be able to respond to that discussion board. But go ahead and do that. Get a nice lively discussion going. And then you can look at the next video about the poem El Olvido.